Hello and welcome back to the School for Therapy. My name is Zoe Thomas. I'm a licensed therapist, consultant, and content creator. And I use this platform to demystify and destigmatize mental health and therapy one video at a time. Today, I want to talk about this post that I saw on the Holistic Psychologist Instagram. And I was so happy that Dr. LaPerla posted this because it's something I talk about in my own social circle with other therapists and with the people that I'm closest to, but we do not talk about this problem enough. And what is that problem? The fact that ultimately, when you look at it from a holistic view, therapists do not make the amount of money compared to the value that they bring. Let's talk about it more and break it down. So the COVID-19 pandemic caused a surge in the amount of people seeking therapy, the amount of people talking about therapy, mental health awareness. We have seen this mental health renaissance as a result of the pandemic. And as a therapist myself, I'm really happy to see this. I am. I'm glad to see people talking about their mental health, talking about therapy, being on their healing journeys, choosing to do the work. I love to see it. I love to see it. But something that I've noticed in these conversations is people talk a lot about therapy, but we don't talk a lot about therapists, like who therapists are, right? What does it take to become a therapist? How do we get here in the first place, right? And the fact that ultimately therapists are the people guiding others through their healing journeys, through their wellness journeys, their mental health journeys, and that people are not doing this by themselves. And so I think a lot of people assume that because everybody's going to therapy, everybody's talking about therapy, that therapists are doing great. And girl, let me tell you something right now. That's not the whole truth. So let's just start at the beginning. Let's talk about the education and the training that's necessary to become a therapist, and then we'll go into how is that reflected in a therapist's salary and their work-life balance, if it is reflected at all, problems with this, I think some myths and some misconceptions, and then I will begin to wrap up this video. So, to become a therapist, you must first have a bachelor's degree. You must then get a master's degree in some type of counseling. The degree title and the license title may vary by state. I live in Texas, so I'm going to use myself as an example throughout this entire video. I have my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. It took me 3 years to graduate with my master's degree. I graduated in 2019. Now, while I was in grad school, I had to do a semester of a practicum and I had to do a full year internship, both of which were unpaid. Okay, so I was a student counselor, seeing clients and being unpaid. That's the first thing to pay attention to. While I was also in grad school, I had to take the National Counselor exam, and that exam is necessary to apply for a temporary license, also known as an LPC associate license. So that is the provisional temporary license that new grads gain in order to begin supervision, obtain their supervised hours, to then go on and become fully licensed. So let's go back. You take your NCE, your National Counselor exam, and then from there on, you have to find someone to supervise you. So there are licensed professional counselor supervisors. And these people typically work in private practice, but they also have supervisees who they basically mentor and guide through the supervised hours process. In Texas, you need 3,000 supervised hours in order to go on and become fully licensed. 1,500 of those hours have to be direct, which means that you are either in a one-on-one counseling setting, seeing clients directly. That can also include group counseling. It can also include events. And then 1,500 indirect hours, which is notes, continuing education, trainings, conferences, things like that. Now, keep in mind, you just graduated. Many new counselor grads have student loan debt. For me, I'm 6 figures in, girl. 6 figures, okay? So you have 6 figures of student loan debt. You're not yet fully licensed. You have to be supervised. You have to pay your supervisor to supervise you. So I paid my supervisor $200 a month. Apparently that's on the low end, okay? But $200 a month, and it can take 2 to 5 years to get all 3,000 of the hours necessary to become fully licensed. So that means that you're paying your supervisor anywhere from $200 a month and up for 2 to 5 years while you are in 6 figures of debt and usually working a job that isn't even fully counseling because you can't technically do that yet. Or you could be working in private practice now. But typically there are case manager roles, things like that, that new counseling grads get hired for because they are not yet fully licensed. And so without that full licensure, I mean, your pay is limited, super duper limited. So I'll give you an example. When I graduated in 2019 and started with my supervisor and I started working at a homeless service agency, I was making $43,000 a year. Thankfully, it only took me 2 years to get all 3,000 of my hours. So I was able to go ahead and upgrade my license, I think faster than a lot of counselors are able to. But I mean, listen, I was living with my mama when I was getting my supervised hours. I was not making enough to fully take care of myself. I have now been a fully licensed therapist for 2 years, and I work in the higher education setting, and I make $59,000 a year. Let me know if you thought that was going to be more than it actually was. Let me know in the comments. But I thought it was going to be more than it actually was. And I think part of the journey of becoming a therapist, whether you end up in private practice or not, is having this rude awakening that, oh my gosh, society does not really value the work that we do and reflect that in the way that we are compensated. It just hasn't happened yet. Even with the mental health renaissance that we're in, even with the surge and the demand for therapists increasing, therapists are not making what they deserve to make, period. Now, many people were in the holistic psychologist comments like, girl, my therapist charged $200 an hour. What you talking about? Surely she's living good. My therapist charges $150 an hour. What do you mean? We're confused. We don't understand. These are valid questions. It is a valid argument. You're right. There are therapists that are charging premium prices for their services, but there are multiple caveats. Here's the first thing to consider is that, one, not every therapist wants to work in private practice. I don't think that's talked about a lot. There are some cons to private practice. So, for example, it can be very isolating, working by yourself, working on your own, really having no colleagues to consult with, no team to work with. Two, a lot of the times in private practice, especially if you have your own, you miss out on the benefits of working for a company or an organization. So health insurance, PTO, other benefits, right? They tend to lack in private practice. And also, private practice can kind of be like a lose-lose situation, and working for companies can as well. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But in private practice, let's say you choose to accept insurance, right? And so you want to make your sessions and your services accessible for more people and affordable for more people. Great. But from what I've heard, working with insurance is a nightmare, and the reimbursement rates can be very low, and it can really cause an issue between you and your clients when insurance claims are completed and go through way after these sessions are over, and then your clients are getting these bills and they're saying, well, I already paid for my copay. What is this for? And you have to tell them, well, the insurance only covered so much of your services, and they've only just now told me that. So now I'm just now telling you that, and it's kind of put you in a financial bind. So that's one of the problems with insurance. If you don't want to deal with the hassles of insurance as a therapist, but you want to keep your sessions affordable, $50, $60, $70 a session, you gotta see 30 plus clients a week in order to live the way that you want to, in order to pay your bills, travel, do the things you enjoy, you're gonna have a very, very high caseload. And with that route, it simply isn't sustainable. You are inevitably going to burn out as a therapist. So that's the second issue. But then if you charge premium prices and say, okay, you know what, I only want to see 15 to 20 clients a week, so I'm going to charge $150 to $200 a client, then you kind of push out an entire segment of the population that could benefit from your services. There's a lot of layers and caveats to the issue, and so those are a couple. Now, let's talk about the flip side. Let's say you're a therapist working in the public sector, which is me. I have worked both in private practice and in the public sector. I strayed away from private practice for many reasons. I'll probably make a video on that, but the primary reasons were because it was very isolating. I couldn't predict my salary or my finances. I couldn't properly budget because I wouldn't actually know how much I was gonna make each week. Dealing with people canceling their cards, you know, getting upset over late fees and no-show fees, and it was just too much. I needed more stability. I needed more structure, and I needed to not have to worry about how much I was going to make every single week to pay my bills. So I went into the public sector, and at the time I was just like, you know what, I'm willing to make less in order to have more peace. And so that's essentially what I did, and I'm still at this job today. It provides me stability, both financially, mentally, in my day-to-day. It gives me routine. I don't have to worry about how many clients I'm gonna see each week because my check is the same each month. And I just enjoy having that kind of peace of mind. But when you are working in the public sector as a therapist, your salary is limited. You don't get to decide what your fees are going to be. And especially if you are working within an agency or government setting, which technically the university I work at falls under that category, a lot of roles are grant funded, right? So there's no room to negotiate. Or maybe the university you work at has low enrollment that year, and so your raise is only gonna be about $1,000. That was me. And so that can be very frustrating, but a lot of the benefits are you get to help the people that need it the most, right? And so that's what I do a lot in my job. Like, I am helping the people that need it the most, that need counseling the most. And so if we tell therapists, oh, well, you know what, you're clearly doing fine, you're charging $200 a session, if we encourage everyone to do that, then underserved populations who really need therapy the most miss out, right? There's not enough of us to service them. There's already a therapist shortage, and every single therapist moving towards private practice, although that's their prerogative, it really does a disservice to the people and the population that need us the most. But on the flip side, if we work in the public sector and help those who need it the most, our salary is limited, and a lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck, and it just doesn't make any sense. And that's the whole point of this video and of the message that I'm trying to get across, is that given the education, the time, the money, the training that therapists invest into their license, the return on our investment, regardless of where you go, private practice or the public sector, it is so small. It doesn't make any sense. It's simply unfair. To highlight this point, I'm going to compare a registered nurse's entry-level salary to an LPC's entry-level salary and compare the levels of education and training that's required, okay? So I already told you what an LPC has to do to become fully licensed, right? We talked about the education, the time, the money, the supervision. For a registered nurse, they just need a bachelor's degree in nursing. They have to pass the NCLEX exam, and they're good. That's it. They are good to go. Entry-level registered nurses make an average of $67,889 a year. And this is in Texas. Entry-level LPC makes $49,911 a year. Y'all, there's no equity. There's no equity. And that's ultimately what the holistic psychologist was trying to highlight in her post. Doesn't it make sense how much training and education is necessary for someone to become a licensed therapist versus how much they make when you are comparing them to other fields? I think another thing to pay attention to is how valuable the work we are doing is as well. So when we think about doctors, nurses, hell, even like lawyers and engineers, right? Like we think about the professions that pay the most and what they contribute to society. I think when you look at nurses and doctors, like they're saving lives. Absolutely, totally. But so are therapists. Therapists are saving lives as well. Something else to consider that I don't think enough people talk about is many therapists are first responders as well. Again, not every therapist works in private practice. At my job, we have students in crisis all the time. We have the police walk students up to our office. We often show up in a first responder fashion, very, very often. If there is a natural disaster or a school shooting or any mass casualty or mass trauma that happens, along with the ambulance, along with doctors and nurses and police and firefighters, you have therapists and social workers there. They are there, showing up on the scene, responding first. And so I think it's important that when we talk about therapy, that we're also talking about the value that therapists bring to this society and ask more questions about why isn't that value reflected in our pay? Why is it that therapists have to see 35 clients a week to live comfortably? Why do they have to do that? Why is it that therapists have to have multiple jobs to live comfortably? Do you think if I was making the salary that I deserved, that I'd be on here making content? I would not. I would not be starting a business. I would not be figuring out ways to make multiple sources of income. If I was getting paid what I deserved based on the training, the education, and the experience that I already have, I wouldn't have to do all of that. Yet so many of us do. And so this is why we see a lot of therapists leaving the field, ultimately. And it's unfortunate because I feel like this is avoidable. You know, things don't have to be this way. But you see a lot of therapists leaving the field or moving to coaching, right? Because there isn't this unspoken rule that life coaches should only be charging $50 a session, right? They get to do whatever they want to do. They get to charge whatever they want to charge. I think along with stigma as it relates to attending therapy and mental health care, there's also, I don't know if stigma is the word, but this weird expectation that therapists simply should be making less. We just shouldn't be making a lot of money because we are in service to other people. Even though there are people in different professions who are also servicing others, again, doctors, nurses, lawyers, that charge an arm and a leg or make an arm and a leg for the work that they do. Why aren't therapists receiving the same? And so as a society, as a people, we need to have these conversations and think about what's going on here, especially if you want mental health care. The supply already outweighs the demand. There's already not a lot of us, and now therapists are leaving the field, and it's not an attractive profession because we're not getting paid what we're worth. So this is a societal problem. Whether you are in this field or not, everyone has mental health that needs to be taken care of. Everyone at some point needs help. Everyone at some point may consider seeing a therapist or starting their therapy journey. If there are not enough of us to help you, that is going to become a you problem. And so it's important that we begin to have these conversations now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from this video. And in addition to thinking about therapy and the benefits of therapy, I want you to think about the person sitting across from you in that room, and that they are also a person with bills and kids and responsibilities, that have invested so much into their craft, so much into improving and enhancing the lives of other people. They've invested so much into saving the lives of other people. And I just want more people to pay attention to that and to give therapists the respect that they deserve, and most importantly, for that respect to be reflected by our compensation and our salary. I think one of the ways to fix this really is it needs to be focused on the public sector. I don't think the government invests enough in mental health care. So when we think about government agencies, nonprofits, universities, colleges, hospitals, right? They're simply not paying therapists enough for what they deserve. People who are underserved and with limited resources deserve mental health care. But if we cannot properly compensate and pay and provide respect to the people giving that, then all of us lose. None of us win. So let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if you're surprised by anything you learned in this video. I don't think y'all really know what be going on over here behind the scenes. And I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and tell a friend and tell a friend to tell a friend about this channel. Okay, see you next time. Bye.